advantage of the people on this net who are very knowledgeable and very cooperative. I guess I understand the topic of the day didn't get distributed. I tried, but I'm not on the list to post. But let me read what we've got. Okay. Today's question is, there seems to be a small but steady interest in newer hams interested in boat anchors. Most have only used solid state rigs up till now. What advice do you give these new people about safety, tuning, restoration, and what else might they need? Before we start, let's see if anybody has any items of interest to the group. Call now.
I had an HT37 transmitter on the swap net this weekend for $25 located down in Hesperia. If anybody's interested in that, I can give you the info.
Okay, was that you, Jay?
Larry, W6WUH.
Okay. Okay, so we have W6WUH has an HT37. Just take 6 men and a horse and carry it away. $25, he says. Anybody else have any items of interest?
I have a TR4. This is KW1NG.
I have a TR4 power supply and sinker for sale, working. Good condition. Make you a good deal. KW1NG.
Okay, thanks, Ken. Yeah, we've got a bunch of things from an estate, including a TR4 also, with the power supply. We have a Swan 270 transceiver, all kinds of miscellaneous equipment and microphones and what you might have. I'm going to be going to Yuma, so anything that anything somebody wants, he can bring to Yuma. Any other comments? Oh, okay. So let's get started. Let's do the first four. Is J, NY6L. J, bring it over to Roger, W6CVA. Welcome back, Roger. K6KOA, John. KOI, rather, John. And N6AF. And when you're done, turn it back to me. Take it away, Jay.
Okay, very good. The juggling between the radio, the phone, the list, taking a sip of to get my so I don't cough on the radio here. I'm sorry, but I missed the question of the evening. Shame on me. Can you repeat that one more time, Ron, please?
Yes, certainly. The question of the evening for Jay or for anybody else that missed it, there seems to be a small but steady interest by newer hams in boat anchors. Most have only used solid state rigs up till now. What advice do you give to those people about safety, tuning, restoration, and general information about boat anchors? So, Jay, take it away.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Ron. K2RPNY, 6L Hesperia. Well, basically what I have done and always emphasized is you're dealing with high voltage when working with tube equipment. The one-hand method is always safe. And make sure if you're working on anything that's high voltage with high current, make sure you have a discharge, discharge the power supply and make sure everything is dead completely. Like I've been working on these tube linear amplifiers and stuff. Got to make sure everything is 100% dead, and always make sure that the grounding clip is always in place, and things are unplugged. So that's very important. So number one is treat high voltage with utmost utmost respect, because I've been shocked by back in my 20s when I was trying to work on a Zenith hybrid color television set, lining up the convergence, and I was reaching for in the back trying to adjust the focus potentiometer that had a long stick, one of those hollow plastic sticks on there. Well, I don't know if it had carbon buildup or something, but it found my left hand, and I got thrown out of the garage. And it was an extreme, how should I say, a wake-up call that I'm glad I survived. So there you go. All right, over to Roger, W6CVA, NY6L.
All right, thank you, Jay, up there in Hysteria, NY6L. W6CVA here, back home in Carlsbad. A long trip from Quartzsite for the week, and Jillian Pasadena for a couple of days. Well, let me see. Well, I've got a lot of good Elmers out there. Jay and a bunch of others have helped me as a young ham, as I may not be young in age-wise, but I'm young in the hobby. And they've always put one hand in the pocket, and the other one was a test probe, and always treated as live wire. Well, I kind of learned that in the Navy as well, Always assume it's alive until you prove it's not. But we always had a tag-out program, tag out the source before you worked on it and double-check it. But anyway, so far I'm still here. I've worked on my amplifiers, the 811 myself, replaced the tunes, and I worked on an old DNA amplifier, and sometimes I do some dual facet tone work over there, like here. I'm working on my 3001, one of the 1165 out without the bottom of my phone. And I got one more resistance for this. Two resistance. And I noticed that relay and the coil also
Okay, this is King 6 King Ocean India, John, in Del Mar, and tonight I'm running the Collins S line. I was using the 100MX and heard Rocco's S line, and I thought, well, I'm going to fire mine up. And using it with that's far I got from Rocco, actually, a 100 band at 2000 Baker. And so I think Jay pretty well said it. It can't be said more too many times how high voltage can just ruin your whole day, not to mention your life. And Jay, it sounds to me like focus is what you're adjusting, but focus is what you got. Kind of a hard way to do it, but well, I'll tell you, we all make mistakes, and some of them can be fatal. The only thing I would add to what already has been said is if I were discussing the matter with a new ham, I would discuss with him how you tune up the final stage with dipping the final, as it were, and using the loading control. And I think I try to mix a little bit of theory in there as well as what it is doing, how it's matching impedances, and how if it is not matched properly, heat is developed in the tubes and destroys the tubes. So if you give a little bit of background, not just instructions, I think it's helpful. Over to back to the top, to Q2IP, Q6QI.
Okay, John, I think we had at 6 a.m. today.
Okay, do I have it?
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Ron. Good evening, everybody. November 6 Alpha Fox in the chilly hills of Emerald Hills up above Redwood City. And I'm on my KWM2 and driving a
unfortunately, what could easily be a widowmaker, the SSB 220. And that'll dovetail into my answer. So my advice, if you're working on tube gear, just be careful to never work on high voltage circuits, things that you need to measure when you're in a bad mood, when you're fatigued, when you've been drinking alcohol, or you're on compromising medication. I would treat working on tube circuits that are live the same way I treat my weapons. If I'm going to the shooting range, you need to be highly focused and not distracted. So of as sharp a frame of mind as possible. And generally, I mean, we do have to go in there and make measurements on live circuits, at least in, a few 100 volt scenarios, poking around in my KWM2, for example. But in general, when probing around in very high voltage, say, KV circuits like my SSB 220, pretty much I would not go poking around in there when there's any power applied. Or you can set up, voltage dividers and have shielded, insulated leads coming from nodes, all when it's turned off, and then turn the power on to make measurements. But anyway, the main thing is watch the Merlot as when you start reaching into the KWM2. So that's my advice. And if I stick to it, I'll probably stay alive and be able to answer the next question next week. So back to you, Ron, and thanks for running it. K2RP from N6AF.
Okay, N6AF is a group, K2RP. Let's pause here for a moment. Anybody else want to check in on the Vintage Sideband Roundtable? Call now. Okay, nothing heard. Let's see. The next four. Well, let me make a comment before. Everybody's focusing on safety, which obviously is the most important thing. But in addition to that, there are other factors like how to tune them up and work and use them without blowing your finals out is one thing. Restoration tips, anything else could be added to that, but I agree that the safety is the most important. Okay, let's see next four, W6WUH, Larry, turn it over to Rocco, N6KN. Rocco's familiar with this cyclone that I'm using. WB6RLC, Glenn, then over to Ron, K6ZTA, and then back to me. Take it away, Larry.
Okay, Ron. K2RP W6WUH. Well, I don't have much contact with new hams or really many hams in person anyway. But I have put up an awful lot of videos on YouTube about classic and vintage ham radios, and one pretty extensive set of videos of overhauling a Valiant, where I talk really about all of the details that go into doing and cleaning and their restoration and resurrection of an old tube radio. So most of what I have to say about those things are embedded in those videos. If somebody came and asked me, I think I would probably tell them, if it was an all-tube radio and not hybrid, to start with some kind of a heat kit and get the manual, preferably the original manual, because the documentation in those manuals is so very extensive. And not only schematics, but pictorials showing every bit of proper lead dress and the component placement and stage-by-stage descriptions of how the thing works. Good troubleshooting information that voltage charts and all of the information that they give you for the first time you fire up a kit is very valuable for anybody working on one of those things. So that's my that would probably be my recommendation if somebody came and asked me about a first tube type breakdown. Get some kind of a heat kit and get the manual and study it and learn it and use it, because you'll learn a tremendous amount from in the process of doing that. But if you're starting with a Johnson Navigator or something else, those manuals are adequate and pretty good too. So it just kind of depends on what their interest is. But that's about all I got to say about it, I guess. N6KN, Rocco, W6WUH.
Okay, Larry. And everybody, well, really good. Let me turn down the gain here. John, I think you were hitting a little hard, and I think I am too. Really good recommendations. I agree with Larry on the heat kits. The manuals are exceptionally well done and have troubleshooting instructions and resistance charts and all kinds of stuff in there. I would add this, that if the new ham wants to operate CW, and some of them do, then I would encourage them to start with something simple, like an old novice transmitter, like a DX60 or something like that, because the circuits are simple and easy to understand and relatively easy to troubleshoot. If they manage to get one going, they can add a VFO, and they'll need to learn about antenna relays and all kinds of other stuff. The other advice I would give to somebody getting into it is pick a very nice radio that is known to work. In other words, something that somebody else has already gone through, and they can learn how to take care of it, maybe balance the carrier, certainly how to tune it up, stuff like that. But that way they don't have to troubleshoot something that may be difficult. All right, let's see. Glenn, over to you, WB6RLC from N6KN.
All righty, Vaughn. Thank you very much. WB6RLC. Glenn here in Cathedral City, near Palm Springs. Next Bergover, where the desert meets the sand. Rick tonight's back on the Swan 100. Swan 100, geez. Swan 400. Good thing I'm not on any of the above mentioned drugs and alcohol and anything else. This is my natural state, boy. Anyway, so sure 444 mic up to an off-center fed dipole at about 32 feet. Interesting question. And everybody's pretty much beat all of the safety issues to, done those good, hand in the pocket and all that. But I'd be talking to them about budget. What can you afford? What are your plans? What do you see? Collins is great gear, but if you're just getting started and you may decide you don't want to do this, well, then you got a little more expensive piece of gear sitting there. So maybe, check their budget, see what they want to spend. Heat kit, things like that are all good stuff. Still got a garage full of that if somebody wants it. It'll be at Yuma. But anyway, tune up. I'm sorry, I've always just gone, but I have a antenna tuner, but it's just got. I just use it for SWR and monitoring the power output. And I usually just peak for max output.
I've always watched, dipping grids and all of that, and it still seems like, if the thing's putting out peak output, it's all pretty much resonant, and it doesn't draw too much current. You're not hard on your finals. So I just watch the output meter on the external output meter and just peak for max out. And more recent radios, and still vintage, still do that. They just got relative out, and you tune for peak out. And also, I would talk to them about transceivers instead of doing separate. If you're just stepping into it, we learned separate because when a lot of us got started, that's all there was, So I had my homebrew transmitter and a R55 receiver, and you're flipping switches and moving things around. But, if you don't have to, maybe just, a nice Swan or a nice Heath kit or something for a couple of $100. Yes, make sure that you know that it's working, know who you're buying it from, and go with the single type of radio instead of separates. If you get into it, then you can try the separates and things like that. But single just transceivers are a lot easier to tune, and seems to work better. But anyway, that's my 2 cents worth. Let's see, goes over to, who's it go to, Vaughn? Well, I guess I was talking to Rocco before. Yeah, K6ZTA, WB6RLC.
Yeah, WB6RLC, K6ZTA. Okay, very good. Thank you, Fred. Well, we're using the ICOS tonight, so we're running 100 watts peak here. It's 100 watts of, I don't know if it's 100 watts of peak. Maybe it is. Yeah, let's see. So, anyway, we were wondering about this, the question of the evening. Working on a transmitter, even the smaller transmitters, like even a Viking Adventure, they've got 650 volts on the plate, and so, there's voltage around. It doesn't have to be to an SKD. But if it's to an SKD, I think it hurts a lot worse. But I'm wondering if it's not considered right to, if you're going to use one hand to, don't lean on the cabinet with your other hand. Put your other hand in the pocket so that you don't, you might not get it through the probe, but you might be brushed against something on the way in and the way out of making a measurement with a probe. So you want to put your other hand out of the plate, get it out of the playing field. So anyway, not much else to add here, and I just hope the people are copying me to some degree. So back over to you, Ron. K2RP from K6ZTA.
Okay. K6ZTA in the group K2RP. Yeah, I would hope that Vaughn gets his antenna back up. He's a little tough to copy. Everybody else is strong. Yeah, John, I did want to mention also that you sounded like you were hitting him a little bit too hard. I thought it might be because we're too close together, but Rocco made the same comment. Okay, let's see. If anybody else wants to check in for the Vintage Sideband Roundtable. Call now.
JF6SYD.
JF6SYD. Haven't heard you in a long time.
Yeah, good to be here. I'm on the ICO that I got from Vaughn, so I'll wait for my turn.
Anybody else? Okay, let's see. The next four. Let's kick it off with Phil, 10-6-WHK. Phil, send it over to George, W6YEC. After George, W8RJIB Bob. And after the next one is KW1AG Ken. Turn it back to me. Go ahead, Phil.
K2RP, November 6th, Whiskey Hotel Kilo.
Well, I've been very careful on all my equipment. I'm actually a little scared to tune them up because I don't want to damage them. So I go maybe a little under what I should. I've worked on 2 amplifiers, my L4B and the 811, and I made sure both of them were completely discharged and shorted out so they couldn't hurt you. Because there's a lot of voltage in there, and I don't want to feel it or use it as a jolt. So I've always been very, very careful. And like this rig I'm on right now, George has worked on it a couple times. I was just an observer. It was a little too complicated for me with all those ICs in there, and a bunch of them are rosin core. So it's going through resoldering all the ICs back into it. And I learned a lot from him, the way he works on things, and I've watched him work on other things. I'm not a technician, so once I get something working, I don't like playing with it. I want to make sure it stays working, so I'm very gentle with it. Whereas my Swan here, my Heath kits, or my Viking, or my Rangers, so I don't want to mess with them too much, because like I said, I'm not a tech. So with that, let me send it over to my Homer. W6YEC and 6WHK.
Good evening from K6LGL, Santa Monica.
LGL recognized. W6YEC, George, you with us?
I am, but I had to pick up the right microphone. The other vintage rig I didn't turn on tonight, the Swan rig. But Skip came in, so I just automatically grabbed the Swan microphone. Anyway, very good on everybody's comments. Good evening, one and all, and we're on the TS520 Sugar tonight with its matching SM220 scope, which is always nice to have and observe what's going on the people's, everybody's signal, and make sure that we're doing okay as well. Anyway, good comments all the way around, especially making safety an emphasis. What comes to my mind, Ron, tonight is encouraging them. Somebody already covered the manual side of it. I think Rocco did. But make sure that they read their manual and become familiar with the radio. The other thought that came to my mind is helping an individual learn how to solder. If they're just getting into vintage radio, they probably have no experience in soldering. And teach them how to solder correctly. And give them opportunity to practice with you so you can kind of watch how they do it. And make sure they clean the tips of the soldering iron that they're using, and that they're not using one that's really, really hot, more hot than it should be. And those kind of things, I think, are practical applications that they need to learn that they're going to get in and begin to work on radios. And I'm just going to underscore with everybody what's been said in terms of if we're just talking about operating the radio, learning tune-up procedures. And even today, a lot of times I notice that hams have not tuned their amplifiers correctly, especially when they're not solid-state amps and they're tuning amps. You know, we have to dip and load. And so many times they tune them up for peak envelope power. And that's incorrect. They really need to tune it for carriers. And make sure the carrier is running legal limit. And then they're permitted to get up to the peak envelope power. But a lot of guys tune it up and amplifiers are overdriven and really sound horrible. So that's just a practical suggestion. All right, let's see here. I have Bob next. WA9JIB. Good to hear you in there, Bob. Let's see what you have to say to us tonight. Looking forward to hearing from you. Take it away, W6YEC.
W6YEC and the group WA9JIB. Bob here in La Cañada. Oh, I'm still getting over this cold I've had for a couple of weeks. Just a little bit of grunge in my throat. Anyway, I'm hearing everybody here tonight. Signal's all pretty good. Tiny little bit of QR Mary, but not a problem. I'm on the Yaesu station again, FT101E, barefoot to my inverted V dipole, which hangs off a 35-foot mast, and survived the windstorm. Let's see, yeah, I'm in La Cañada. Okay, what can I say about this? Well, if there is a burgeoning group of young hams, or newbie hams, interested in boat anchors, they haven't knocked on my door yet. So, maybe I've run into a couple at field day, or come to one of our Crescenta Valley Radio Club meets. So I don't have a lot of experience in how to Elmer them. But I would certainly echo all the comments on dealing with high voltage with vacuum tubes. Although nobody warned me about that when I started out as a teenager playing with stuff. And, my dad would have me wire up kits and things like that. And he probably mentioned in passing once or twice, be careful not to touch that, where the power line comes in or something like that. But we never made a big deal out of it, and yet we all survived. So that was the way it was in the 1960s. But maybe we're all more safety conscious now, or paranoid. Anyway, yes, I don't have a lot to add, but what I would try to do is, if somebody is unfamiliar with gear from the 60s, 50s, maybe even a little earlier than that, I try to help them understand what they got. For example, if you got a Knight R55 or a Hellcrafters SX73, I would say, well, they look kind of similar, but one's probably going to perform better than the other. And I wouldn't steer them away from the lower end. I'd say you can have a lot of fun with the low-end gear. Anybody can get the QSO with the high-end gear. It's kind of fun to get it with the low-end gear. But I wouldn't want them to have unreasonable expectations. I would just sort of say, this is a better radio than that, and this other one's better than both of those two. But I don't mean by that that you shouldn't start out with an S38 if you want to. Just try to manage their expectations, and then they can grow into a better rig as time goes on. So I would toss that into the mix, just because a lot of newbies might not even be familiar with the manufacturers from those days, and might not know how to place them in the pantheon of quality. So I'll just toss that into the mix. Over to KW1NG, WA9JIB.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Bob. KW1NG here, Alpine. About 30 miles east of San Diego, analyst Ken. And, I think it's pretty much all been said. if you're going to work on the gear, the safety precautions, proper soldering techniques, and maybe some instruction on, things might need new caps, cap types to put in, and check all the resistor values, make sure everything is still soldered. So many pieces of equipment I've worked on, the problem was simply a bad solder joint. So, it's not a bad idea to learn your soldering technique by going through and very carefully resoldering all the joints and measuring the components, the resistors and the caps, and instruction on that to get them familiar with that kind of thing. Not necessarily just for vintage, but I know a lot of new hams really like help on antennas and teaching them how to make a proper dipole or an end-fed, antenna. Something simple that they can get up that's very effective, and that kind of thing can be very appreciated too. I don't have a whole lot more, so I'm going to pass it on. Back to you on K2RP, KW1NG.
Okay, good. A lot of good thoughts in there. A lot of it's going to be hard to pick out a golden cup tonight because so many people have had so many things that are obvious that I wouldn't have thought of. So, good job. Let's give one more last call. Anybody else want to check in?
I hope you got me, K6 LGL.
Yeah, we got you. Where would we be without you? Okay, last three. N4DLA. You could be next. The next one is, can't read my own handwriting here. Okay, F6SYD. Haven't heard you for a while. Welcome back. And let's finish up with K6LGL. Skip over there. Okay, N4DLA to take it.
Okay, thank you. Ron, K2RP and the Vintage Sideband Roundtable from Matthew N4DLA in Orinda, California, about 15 miles east of San Francisco, running an Atlas 210X with a Shure 444 microphone, straight feeding a 75-meter dipole up about 20 feet, about 44 degrees outside, and I also did winter field day this past weekend, QRP. And QRP with ham sticks on 10 and 15 meters works pretty well, but not 20 or 40. We'll just leave it at that. Piece of string's not much better. But as far as the question of the evening goes, I'll echo everybody's sentiments on safety and also Rocco with documentation. My Elmer, not first Elmer, but K3 Tango Mike, or Tango Mary, he told us all in the novice class about what to look for when purchasing equipment and taking into, nowadays the vintage equipment might look good on the outside, but take a look at it on the inside, see what's missing or what's blown up before you even plug it in. And I guess the first major piece of vintage equipment I worked on was a 150A transmitter that had several exploded diodes and resistors inside of it, mystery of which I installed. And I also worked on a companion R180 receiver that needed some work. I installed the crystal calibrator for it. It didn't work. It turned out the solder joint was cold on the person that originally built it to it. Wired the switch that controlled the crystal calibrator, although there wasn't one in when it was built. The switch had been wired for it and a cold solder joint. So again, what people said about echoing about soldering. But definitely the documentation that I was able to get, original night documentation, which included the full out, large, blanket-sized diagram. They're a big help. All the values, anything that's in a kit, it seems to be easy to get documentation for. Some of these companies that are long out of business, it's harder to get documentation than what wasn't built as kits. So I don't see what's going on. You don't have the factory assembly manual because I was not assembling it. So, anyway, everybody has a great week. I'll turn it over to Steve. What's good? KF6SYD and the Vintage Sideband Roundtable from N4DLA.
Okay, Matthew, KF6SYD. Follow me as I drift. I should have turned this ICO 753 on about an hour earlier than I did, and it moves the whole time I'm listening, so I'll be drifting all the time I talk.
Good to be here with you guys, and I don't know the question, but I think I know the answer, which is I'd love to have somebody that lived, not too far away from me, that I could help get started, go over to their place, show them, do the net, get them going. I really didn't have an Elmer, except for all of you guys, and I kind of knew what I was doing when I became a ham. I don't know how that is, but that's the way it is. But it would be really satisfying to have someone I could get going and get them over the hump and get them here with us. So thanks for letting me in here, and I hope I didn't drift too far. So KC6LTL, over to you, KF6SYD.
Yeah, you drifted a little bit, Steve, but we can follow you. Okay, KF6SYD and the Vintage SSB Net. Good evening from Santa Monica, K6 Little Green Light. I still have little vestiges of my head cold that I got from my granddaughter. So hopefully I don't sound totally foreign there. One of the things I would add, first of all, a lot of us have some classic American-made equipment, especially receiving equipment. And one of the things that if you do, let's say, confront somebody who's interested, donate that piece of equipment and explain how it works. Start probably with the receivers and tell them that, hey, there's interesting things to listen to. Shortwave and amateur radio and various other strange signals there, anywhere from, below 160 meters to up to 30 megahertz. And many radios, newer radios, have 6 meters, which is also very interesting band. But donate that piece of equipment and give it to them. And something free, and especially if it's American-made, National Helicopters, RME, whatever it may be, so on and so on. Tell them that, hey, we were the prime electrical manufacturer, electronic, back in the 50s and the 60s. So, and then long before that most of it started in here, and some very, very interesting things were developed. So that would be my one suggestion. Then let's ask them to learn something about vacuum tubes too. As far as soldering and practical things, yes, high voltage and that has to be a consideration. But I think the first thing is, hey, we have all this equipment sitting around. Let's have somebody get interested by presenting them a present, because if people have to buy things and they don't understand, that makes it even more difficult. Okay, back to you there, Charles. Not Charles, but Ron, I guess. And it's an interesting topic. And all the other suggestions are all valid. But I think donating a piece of equipment and then, if they're interested, explaining it is a good start.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Skip, and thanks for everybody. A lot of very good points made. Let me just take one more standby for any latecomers. Call now. Everybody's had enough. Okay. A lot of good suggestions. I've been mulling over who would get the gold cup, the silver cup, whatever that is, and the bronze cup, the second I'd like to award that one to Larry, W6WUH, for two comments. One was stick with HeatSkip because of their good documentation, easy to work on because it had to be built by amateurs, and but more importantly, he's the only one that mentioned YouTube. There's tons and tons of information on YouTube now, both in specifics and in general knowledge. But there's a YouTube video or two or three or four of most of the common equipment. It'll give somebody a good background. I didn't think of that at all, but I think that's worth the bronze cup or whatever, what colors they are. The other cup, I got an award to W6YEC. George always gets down to the heart of the problem, whether it's fixing a radio or having a conversation. He had two comments that really show that he's doing things in the right order. He said, make sure they get a manual and read it. Very important. It gives you an idea where you're starting and where you're going. And the other one was soldering. I don't think anybody else mentioned that first. But without soldering, you're not going to do anything at all. So we got to start these skills not with trying to restore KWM2, for example, but into basic soldering and repair techniques. That has to be mastered first, so you'll never make anything work. So I hope everybody agrees, but there were some interesting points made tonight. I thank you very much for participating, and we'll be listening for comments and then returning the frequency to general use, K2RP.
WA6KUS.
Better late than never, WA6KUS. Do you have some comments?
Oh, you're so kind. Well, I just heard your last several minutes and appreciate the subject that you're talking about, and that you're to keep the hope fires burning and that rally the troops. And so I'm glad I could come back, such as I have been able to just now. So I will continue to listen. Back to you, K2RP, WA6KUS.
Okay, very good. John, good to hear you. Try to finish dinner a little early next week. We'd love to have you on. Any other comments?
I think interesting comments from everybody. So thank you. Interesting subject there. So, hey, keep up the good work. Hey, 6,000.
Okay. That does it for another week. Have a good week. See you all next week. K2RP.